Drivers on the French capital's crucial ring road will have to take their foot off the pedal just a little bit as Paris's mayor Anne Hidalgo moves to cut the speed limit from 70 kilometers per hour to 50 kilometers per hour. The decision has triggered outrage among opponents who say Hidalgo's plans were decided unilaterally. While the new speed limits will be enforced gradually from the 1st of October. Let's get more on this story and cross over to Ariane Bousquet, a PhD student in economics at the University of Paris-Saclay. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme. You, of course, focus particularly on the influence of environmental policies on the automobile market. So Mayor Hidalgo has been big on this push to make Paris more green. Is cutting the speed limit to 50 kilometres actually going to have that effect, do you think?
Yes, good evening. So, the key question to understand, I think, is to understand how it will impact the factors that are responsible for air pollution. So this is the target of the policy, but these factors are diverse. So there's the number of vehicles on the road, there's the vehicle type, so for example the vehicle age, the fuel type, the consumption, and there's also the case of congestion. So congestion, why? Because it creates a sudden slowing down and accelerations, and so the presence of congestion creates many pollutants. So there's not a clear answer to your question, obviously, because while the policy might impact several of these factors, so at least two, it might impact congestion, so it might actually reduce congestion. So I say could, because there's no specific study for the reduction from 70 kilometers per hour to 50 kilometers per hour. So we do not have a specific study that tells us that for this particular change, it will reduce congestion and therefore it will reduce air pollution. Instead, most of the literature focuses on highways and fast roads, and they agree that for this type of roads and this type of rapid roads, reducing the speed limit will help actually reduce congestion. And so since it reduces congestion, it will reduce air pollution. But there's not a consensus for less rapid roads and for this specific speed limit. So I cannot say for sure.
Okay, Ariane, but talk us through what you feel are the most concrete effects that this new decision will have.
Well, it might have an indirect effect on the number of cars on the road, because this limit could make cars less attractive for drivers. And so it could reduce demand in the short term, but it could also encourage people to shift to other transport modes. Mm-hmm. But this is interesting, but this also brings the question of equity, obviously, because not everyone can shift to public transport, for example. So in my research, I'm very interested in equity issues of policies. And we know that on the ring road around Paris, there's 1/3 of people that go from suburbs to suburbs. And so this might be difficult for them because we know that for this kind of trips, it's particularly difficult to take the train, for example. There's not a lot of public transport for this type of trips. Mm-hmm. And so these people, so 1/3 of people that use the ring road might not be able to shift to public transport. And so they might suffer the most from the policy. So I think the equity impacts are important to address before implementing the policy.
Okay, well, I want to go back to the environmental effects again. What measures should be taken to tackle air and urban pollution in big cities, do you think?
Well, the speed limit is an idea, and there's already restrictions on peak pollution days that are quite effective. But there's several other ways that are discussed in recent papers in the literature. Actually, there's a paper on the Paris region that has just came out from people from the researchers from the CIRET, so International Center for Environmental and Development Research, and they study the different policies and to what extent people can shift to public transport. And so focusing on new public transport infrastructure and making them accessible and affordable could be a good idea. Also, there's the case that is really discussed right now of low emission zones. Well, it can be, if it's well designed, it can be a good idea for reducing air pollution. But as always, it brings a lot of equity concerns about who can afford less polluting cars and who can shift to public transport. And so, so low emission zones could be a good idea, but they need to be well designed to address equity issues. But yeah, people should focus on making public transport accessible and affordable would actually help a lot to reduce air pollution, I think.
Ariane Bousquet, a PhD student in economics at the University of Paris-Saclay. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Really appreciate your insight there on this story.
Thank you very much.